So why is it that when somebody has an arbitrarily large number of exotic pets, they are often referred to as a hoarder? So I've seen various people on YouTube referred to as a hoarder because they have a lot of exotic animals. And of course, I've also had many people who call me a hoarder simply because they disagree with something I'm saying about somebody or something else that they don't like about me. How many pets do I have? I have currently about 20 exotic pets. However, many of these animals are actually smaller rodents and some are reptiles. And as I've said in past videos, reptiles don't require as much advanced care as many of the others. And you can literally have about 10 snakes and not have that be super high maintenance or anything. So even though it might sound like a high number of animals, and I do have a relatively high number of exotic pets, especially since most people don't even have one of the species that I have, it's still not as high as that may seem. That being said, so yes, I have about 20 exotic pets, and that number is subject to grow and most likely will grow, but many of my exotic pets are smaller rodents, such as my African pygmy dormice and my jerboas, and then medium-sized rodents like my spring hare and my porcupine, and I don't really have any large rodents. My largest animal is of course my dog, and my second largest animal is my paca, who is about 12 or 13 pounds. So relatively speaking, I don't think I have that many exotic pets, but a lot of people have accused me of being a hoarder. So what does it mean to be a hoarder exactly? First, let's look at the actual definitions of hoarding, just so I can just basically factually dismiss this idea that just because somebody has a large number of exotic pets, that they are a hoarder. Here's what the ASPCA has to say about it. Animal hoarding occurs when an individual is housing more animals than he or she can adequately care for. It is a complex issue that encompasses mental health, animal welfare, and public safety concerns. Animal hoarding is defined by an inability to provide even minimal standards of nutrition, sanitation, shelter, and veterinary care, often resulting in animal starvation, illness, and death. And then here's a little more of a scientific reference from the Canadian Veterinary Journal. An animal hoarder is defined as someone who has accumulated a large number of animals and who, number one, fails to provide minimal standards of nutrition, sanitation, and veterinary care. Number two, fails to act on the deteriorating conditions of the animals, including disease, starvation, or death, and the environment, severe overcrowding, extremely unsanitary conditions, and often is unaware of the negative effects of the collection on their own health and well-being and on that of other family members. So no, I don't have a deteriorating collection of animals. My animals are pretty well cared for, I'd say. I spend thousands of dollars on veterinary care for them, and I have, probably since moving to my current location, about 10 vets that I've worked with. And I get them the best quality food. In fact, here's what one of my animals had yesterday. So she has some collard greens, some sweet potato, guava, yellow squash, avocado jicama, papaya, apple, banana, raspberry, apples, and butternut squash. So I don't think there's any grounds for anybody to call me a hoarder just because I have 20-ish exotic pets or whatever. My animals, not that it's anybody's business because it's not like I'm asking for donations or anything, are doing just fine. So when did having a lot of animals become a negative aspect of somebody's personality? If say you have a farmer who has about 20 cows, they probably would never be referred to as a hoarder, or a dog breeder with 20 dogs, or a horse farmer with 15 or 20 horses. Nobody would bat an eyebrow at that. But when I say I have 20 exotic pets, all of a sudden this becomes a problem for people. And then of course you have even human children. There are some people out there with 3 children, 5 children, or even large numbers like 10 or 12. And yet they don't get referred to as, you know, having some kind of personality problem or some kind of psychological problem. And I can guarantee you right now, just one human child is more work than all of my exotic pets. So how can this be? What does it take to care for exotic animals? Well, it's actually not that hard. You simply just give them food, you give them water, and enrichment. Those are, in a nutshell, the three most important things that you can provide for your pets, and it's not that difficult. So for some reason, people view exotic pet owners as having some kind of issue when they have exotic animals. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that the animal is not domesticated, and I guess domesticated animals are perceived as easier to care for, or something that you should be caring for, in contrast to exotic pets. So then why do people get accused of hoarding when it comes to exotic pets mainly? I'm sure if they were dogs and cats and hamsters, then more than likely I probably wouldn't hear that accusation. There seems to be some kind of inherent prejudice against exotic pet owners and the way they care for exotic pets. As I previously stated, people think that exotic pets shouldn't be pets, so having even one exotic pet basically means that you are terrible in their eyes. So basically, people refer to me as a hoarder sometimes because there's this irrational prejudice and hatred against exotic pet keeping. There's this idea that exotic pets are dramatically different from traditionally owned pets. And of course, as I've demonstrated before, that is just simply not true. And that's it. People don't really care how my animals are being cared for, and they're not really concerned about anything, and they probably have no idea how to care for the pets I have anyway. Speaking of exotic pet backlash and people who hate exotic pet keeping, there was once a time in the pet tube community where these videos where people would show their pet rooms and their new pets that they were getting about once or twice a week, and their All My Pets video collections. Those types of videos were very popular, and they got, well, they're still popular, but they got even more popular when somebody had a, again, an arbitrarily large number of exotic pets. Like they would say in their videos, oh, my pet room tour, over 100 animals and things like that. And so I made a video about that, of course.
I wanted to talk about something I've been noticing. Is it just me, or does it seem like so many people are buying more animals? It seems to me that people are getting animals just so that they can put up a video that says, I got a new pet. And I see so many titles like, I got 5 new pets. It's like a fad to put up a video with the title, I got a new pet, which I find a bit strange, especially since exotic pet owners get so much criticism for having animals in the first place, and sometimes the criticism comes from this particular community.
And I think about 2017, complaining about people who seem to be getting more pets, and it just kind of correlated with the popularity of the My New Pet videos, because I tend to make videos about things that are not popular at the time, and it's not trendy or safe to talk about it. So when I made that video, of course, I got some backlash for it, relatively speaking. And then, of course, once a trend dies, when somebody decides to 180 the current trend, now it's become the popular and moral thing to decry when somebody has one of these types of videos and has a whole lot of animals. I guess unless you say that all the animals were rescued or something else, so that you can apologize for having so many animals while still having them, and having everybody be very grateful to you and even maybe want to give you some donations for it or something like that. But never ever say that you actually purchase the animals for yourself and you enjoy them and that's the only reason you have them. That apparently makes you an immoral person. So yeah, now it's popular for people to be against the so-called hoarding, and now that it's nice and safe to say that against the bigger YouTubers, now people start speaking out against it, and they get to act like they're going against the grain when it's really kind of now the predominant mentality. So I guess if that's your thing, then whatever, but it has no effect on the types of animals that I get and the amount of animals that I get, and whether or not I choose to put them on this channel. It's really just my business. So in conclusion, if hoarding animals to you means just the act of having a lot of animals or having a lot of a certain type of animal, then there's really nothing inherently negative about being a hoarder. It doesn't have that implication of abuse and neglect. It just means that you have some ridiculous, unhealthy prejudice against people who keep a certain type of animal, more than likely because you just don't really know anything about that animal. You just know that it's not traditionally owned and it's unusual. So again, basically people who have issues with exotic pets, it's usually just an issue with pet keeping in general and this sympathetic view with various animal rights ideologies. And if that's your thing, fine, but don't pretend that somebody is a hoarder just because they have more unusual animals. Just admit that you have some kind of problem with people having animals in general. You're just not going to speak up against more popular, traditionally owned pets. And if you don't have an issue with pet keeping, then maybe you should just think before you kind of throw the word hoarder around so quickly, because if people keep using it that way to mean somebody with animals, it will just be devoid of all meaning. So I'm going to stick to the technical definitions. Anyway, that's all I have to say for now.